Leading and guiding. But can you wait to be invited? What new experiences do you dream of having? What are you longing for? What do you need to manage around your resources to ensure that you have what you need? These are all pressures, qualities, and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for July 24th to 30th, 2026 bring. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margot Fraser. We're going to be moving into collective frequencies this cycle with their theme of impersonal sharing. So that points to a more social vibe. And we have a big nodal change this cycle that will shift the homogenized perspective and context in the transit field and the pressure that it's bringing. And it's also moving into collective gate. So it's bringing a more social context. Not only that, but this nodal change is going to kick off a long-term channel that's going to be with us until late November that will bring pressure and emotionality. All right, so let's get into it. This cycle starts on July 24th at 3:29 p.m., going until July 30th at 12:47 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, that's coming in July 24th at 9:29 p.m., going until the 30th at 6:47 p.m. Remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun Earth activations as that 70% of the conditioning field. The Sun has moved into gate 31, the gate of leading and influence in the throat center. We also have Jupiter with its expansiveness sitting in this same gate to further amplify this frequency. This is part of the collective logic circuitry, which is always about finding the patterns, the formula to carry us into the future safely and reliably through experimenting, repetition, and understanding. Ultimately, logic is here to be of service to humanity and wants to ensure security. If I do A, B, and C, I'm going to get a certain result consistently and reliably. Its keynote says the law of friction, whether active or passive, that engenders transference and thus influence. In order to lead or guide, you have to be able to transfer patterns to those that have the power to actually make it happen. That's influence. If the quality of the transference is of value, the leadership's going to be of value. The guidance is going to be of value. If it's not of value, the leadership won't be of value. Gate 31 represents the democratic leader that needs to be elected or selected. Without the support of others, there can't be a leader. Leading may be formal, but it could also be informal through providing guidance to others. At the personal level, if you're guiding someone or a group, they have to invite you or you're going to meet with a lot of resistance. If you have guidance to give and it has been invited, you might find that you're more influential with this trait present in this cycle. It's where you have the possibility to bring forward the patterns, the methods, the formula that you found have worked so that others can benefit from them. Now, the key is not to impose those on others. Wait for that invitation to lead or guide and the right timing according to your strategy and authority so that you'll be using your energy with those who really want to follow your guidance and through what is aligned for you. This throat gate carries the voice of I lead or I don't lead. If there's no gate 7, it's electromagnetic, there can really be this sense of not being personally identified with what being said, and it comes across more like a talking head, kind of hollow. In the collective, we're likely to hear more people talking about trends and patterns, and there'll be people trying to influence each other out of these pressures and get others to take action based on what they say. The Sun's position is being grounded by the Earth, which has moved into gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease in the root center. We have Pluto in this gate as well. So once again, this energy is going to be extra strong in the field. Interesting to see that both the Sun and the Earth have an outer planet in the same gate. This is part of the collective abstract circuitry, which is about going through experiential cycles to gain wisdom so that we don't have to start from scratch each time in our evolutionary process. Its keynote says the limitation of resources, which maximizes development of potential. When you don't have resources and experience in something, you're limited in various ways. But if you put all of your energy into one experience that's of value to you, there's the potential to go through a developmental process of learning and gaining experience that will serve you and ultimately others. This leads us to one of the rules of thumb for experiential traits, which is one experience at a time. Another rule of thumb is no expectations, which is very difficult for the mind. You just need to be in the experience for the experience. And if you've entered into it correctly, according to your strategy and authority, you'll navigate through it in the way that you're meant to and learn the lessons that you're meant to. This gate brings the pressure to enter into a new experience. And here at the start of the process, it's about daydreaming and fantasizing about all the different experiences that you'd like to have. It's very innocent here. There's a hunger for a new experience, but which one? It points to the solar plexus emotional center, which means it's going to take time to narrow this down, to contract this down to the one that you're really yearning for, which can then be recognized in the electromagnetic gate 30. Now, we're going to see that when we get to the nodes, that gate 30 is coming in. So we'll talk more about that later, but it's important to have patience, not to just jump into something out of the pressure. In the collective, this gate of decrease can literally point to a decrease in material resources. When we look at these two traits together, what you dream about may help you to guide another. You may influence others through your vision of the future and what you'd like to experience, or you could be inspired by someone else's vision. There's also the potential to lead or be led into greater contraction and decrease within the collective. All right, let's move to the nodes now in the transit field. They bring the homogenized perspective and direction that we'll see in the world. This is really the context that the transit field's bringing, that the sun, the earth, and the other planets express themselves within. And we can't separate ourselves from our environment, so the qualities of these traits can also play out through us. Now, we have a big change, as I mentioned, in the nodes. They're changing gates on the 25th, about 11 hours after the start of the cycle. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the nodes at the start of the cycle, as they're here for such a short period of time, but just in a brief summary, we'll be moving out of the individual spirit and mood and the tribal sexuality with its pressure to make more of us. We're also moving out of the line one themes of investigation, introspection, and security or insecurity. So if you want more details on those, just look back to the last video from the previous cycle. Now, we move into our next nodal cycle, which is going to be significant in its own way. It's going to come in on July 25th at 2:19 a.m., going until November 23rd at 8:13 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. That'll be Mountain Standard Time by the time it ends. UTC, it's coming in July 25th at 8:19 a.m., going until November 24th at 3:13 a.m. We're going to have the North Node moving into gate 30, the trait of recognition of feelings, the clinging fire, and desire. And the South Node's going to move into gate 29, the trait of saying yes, also called the abysmal. Both of these are part of the collective, abstract, experiential circuitry, so it's going to bring a more social vibe to the environment. Since the nodes move in a clockwise direction, which is opposite to the planets, they're going to be moving into line 6. So this is going to bring general themes to the environment of transition, looking for something beyond the expression of the gate, beyond the mundane. It brings a vulnerability to the environment. It's brings an emphasis or a theme of transpersonal relationships and who to trust or not. The 6th line is the line of the role model, or in the polarity, the hypocrite. So we're likely to see the role models and the hypocrites in the world around us. Gate 30, the trait of recognition of feelings, is in the emotional center. So we continue to have emotionality in the environment. But instead of that spike wave, that moody spike wave we had with the 55, this is like the ocean crash wave that rises on the wave of expectations and comes crashing down, usually in disappointment when the expectations aren't met. As I mentioned earlier with the Earth's position in gate 41, two rules of thumb of the experiential circuitry are not to have expectations. You just have to be in the experiences that are correct for you according to your strategy and authority for whatever they bring. But this is context. This is what the homogenizing conditioning pressure is. So we're going to see this real emphasis on an environment where there's this swelling up out of expectations, all these expectations that we're going to see around us, and then seeing those also come crashing down in disappointment. And we may get caught up in that ourselves. So really bring some awareness around that. This is the desire for change, this deep hunger and longing for a certain feeling. Remember that this energy ultimately wants to get to the 35 at the end of this stream. That's the trait of progress and change and the throat center. So we have this deep yearning in the environment that requires incredible patience to be able to sit with the ups and downs of the emotionality until the opportunity comes to actualize it, which is the process of the 36, 35 channel of transitoriness that this energy wants to move to. This is probably the most difficult gate in which to let go of expectations, this gate 30. So in our not self world again, we'll likely see all sorts of expectations. It's not lost on me that this transit's going to be taking us through the midterm elections in the US. At the personal level, really do your best to stay grounded so that you're not getting caught up in the emotionality rather than observing it, especially if you have an undefined emotional center. It's going to be extra intense because, yes, we have the Earth and its electromagnetic gate 41 in the root, but Pluto's there too. So we're going to have this long-term channel of the 41 to the 30 for this full nodal period. Everyone's root and emotional centers are going to be defined, bringing pressure and emotionality. And I'll talk more about that when we get to the channel themes in the definition section. Gate 30 is maybe best described as the trait of desire. This is the clinging fire, the burning for something new. It's not actually doing it. So it's going to be a time when we're going to see people sharing their dreams, their desires, what they're hungry for, what they're longing for. This is where we find the sweetness and the sourness of life. So we'll see and hear about both of these and see it play out in the world around us. Even though another rule of thumb of the experiential circuitry is to never repeat an experience, well, we humans tend to need to go through a few cycles of the same thing to remember why it didn't work the first time round, or if the experience was interrupted and kind of taken from you per se, there can be this longing to reclaim a feeling or an experience that you had before, or to try and recapture something that you felt was lost. So that's something else that we could see play out in the environment as well. Now, line 6 for this gate is called enforcement. It has a developmental theme, which means it's something we learn over time, that says the discipline to maintain right action. The discipline to stick with the desire is what this is speaking to. The exaltation says the assertiveness to purge the inferior while accepting to lead the weak. The strength to eliminate negative feelings. The detriment says an inherent peacefulness that all too often will abide the presence of inferior forces, a lack of strength in eliminating negative feelings. So when it's talking about inferior here or inferior forces, these are the negative feelings. The sixth line always wants something beyond. It wants the best of all experiences. It brings just wanting the feel good, not all the negative stuff of the emotional wave. And it brings wanting to find people that will bring the thrill and the excitement. The sixth line can see the full experiential circuitry, and it's only going to act when it sees there can really be fulfillment of it. that there can be really this progress and change, and that it will be a wonderful experience. So it's going to bring a context where people are looking for those that bring hope and can eliminate the negative. The south node's moving into gate 29 in the sacral center, the center that generates the vital energy to work. As the gate of saying yes, it's the trait associated with committing to an experience. Experience has its ups and downs, and this is the energy to persevere through all of that. It's pointed in this case at the G center. So it's an experience that can bring you more deeply into yourself. It's also called the abysmal because if you commit to an experience that's not correct for you according to your strategy and authority, it can be really difficult to get out of, and you can end up just being abysmal. This name, the abysmal, is also a bit of a nod to the fact that when you're in an experience for the experience, there are going to be those ups and those downs. And the downs could be subjectively experienced as abysmal. But again, this trait brings the ability to persevere through them. This is really encapsulated in the keynote for this trait that says, the deep within the deep. Persistence, despite difficulties, has its inevitable rewards. It's what allows us to commit and say yes to life. Now, the polarity can be there as well of saying no to life, no to the experience, which is fine if you're following your strategy and authority. In the not self world around us, you may recognize that there are those that are overcommitted, complaining, and miserable out of this. They said yes to way too many things that were not correct for them. There will also be those that really enter into a new journey and discovery of themselves, and you'll be able to see them, persist through it. And it could bring this to you as well. So if it's correct for you to enter into a new experience and this trait is active in your design, it's going to help you bring that perseverance to it through the ups and downs, and just really surrender to the experience for whatever it brings. For gate 29, it's in line 6, which is called confusion. It also has a developmental theme that says the state that exists when momentum outstrips awareness. The exaltation says driving blind, and given Mars' energy and determination, often blind luck. The power to persevere that makes no sense. In the detriment, it says the tendency and confusion to withdraw rather than accept the condition and continue to persevere. The power and confusion to caution rather than saying yes. Once again, the 6th line wants to know that the experience will ultimately be of value to humanity. The existential why is in this 6th line. Why is human existence the way that it is? Why do we have to go through all of this as humans? There can be a lot of confusion here because there's the energy to commit, but the lack of clarity on whether in the end it's really going to be of value to humanity. So there can be this let's just go with it despite the confusion. Or there can be this saying no to it and just withdrawing. So it brings an environment where people are committing, but really can't make sense of it themselves, or more likely in the not self world where people are withdrawing and feeling overwhelmed by the confusion and inability to make sense of what the experience could bring and with what's going on in the world. Overall in the nodes, to me, this is really pointing to the quality of people that are in one's environment. If they bring hope and inspiration, we're going to see people being inspired and committing to a new experience for whatever it brings and being able to purge the negative feelings. If what's around you pulls people into negative feelings, we're more likely to see people withdrawing in confusion and not making progress despite a deep longing for change. There could also be a deep longing for an experience that one can commit to. So this is, again, the context, what we're going to see play out around us in the environment. And again, could play out through us. All right, let's move to the definitions now through any short to long-term channels and gate activations in the related centers. These bring the consistent themes present in the cycle created by the transit field. Everyone that doesn't already have these in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So they have a big impact that way. It impacts everyone in the world. In our homogenized world, it's going to run those that are not aware. However, with your awareness, you'll have the potential to learn from these frequencies when it's correct for you. Now, I'll leave out the moon or interplanet transits unless they have a significant impact on the cycle. All right, we've got two definitions this cycle. We have one that came in earlier on July 22nd through the medium term channel of the money line, a design of a materialist. And then we've got the channel of recognition that's going to be created when the nodes change on the 25th. So again, it's about 11 hours after the start of this cycle. All right, let's start with the money line first. This is a channel that will be here for the full cycle. We've got Mars sitting in gate 45, the trait of the gatherer in the throat center, and it's going to be clicking through its lines. It's connecting to its electromagnetic, gate 21, the trait of the hunter, the huntress, and control being activated by Saturn. Now, Saturn's going into retrograde on July 26th, which is going to extend its stay in its current line, which is line 6. This trait's about managing resources in an effort to manifest and achieve material success for the tribe. Now, Saturn, in that gate 21, is sitting in line 6 called chaos. It has a developmental theme that says where ineffective action leads to disorder. It's a 6th line, so again, that means it's looking at the whole tribal circuitry, and it isn't going to do anything unless it can see that the action taken can really lead to that manifestation of the material. There's an innate understanding here that disorder and chaos results if the actions to manage the resources and people are not effective. The 6th line also brings looking for something beyond the material. So there can be this looking for something more spiritual here. We don't have the exaltation of this trait active in the world. We only have the detriment present. And the detriment says withdrawal and reliance on inner order in chaotic situations. Where the material direction is chaotic, the ego will withdraw and use its power to find an inner order. Interestingly, here, there can be that pull to more spiritual businesses that help people with inner order. In any case, you may notice that people who are feeling overwhelmed by the chaos in the world are more withdrawn while this frequency is present. They're doing things to just tune it out. Keep in mind that we just saw gate 29 in line 6 in the nodes in detriment, also talking about withdrawal. In that case, out of confusion. So there's a quality in the transit field of withdrawal that's going to be there if people are feeling overwhelmed or confused. We may see more people withdrawing and distracting themselves from what's going on in the world, especially where their leaders are not managing the resources of the tribe per se, whether that's a nation, a business, or a community group in a healthy way or what's perceived as a good way. With the full channel present, it brings the theme of managing material resources. This is the tribal leadership channel where energy is exchanged for matter, for resources, and back again. The tribal traits always bring a theme of mutual support, having support or not. This is a channel focused on resources and what you can control or not. So you may find the pressure is there to manage your resources. The voice of gate 45 is I have or I don't have, I need or I don't need. So this is a channel where the voices of the haves and the have-nots can be expressed. It's a channel that can bring a generosity from what you do have towards those that don't have, and it brings a general pressure towards education. The more educated the tribe, the more everyone can rise up together. On the other hand, leaders of nations or groups can also oppress education in an effort to maintain control. This channel can also bring a do-it-yourself kind of pressure. So if you have this channel in your design, it's usually best that you work for yourself, although you do need to learn to delegate. If you don't, watch that this pressure doesn't have you leave a job to go out on your own unless it's really correct for you according to your strategy and authority. In that case, this is going to be really helpful. Now, we do have hasty and fiery Mars in the 45, so rushing decisions to try and prove yourself or maintain control or take control could also play out here. There could be a tendency to be over controlling, especially if you don't have the 21 in your own design, and it's likely to lead to chaos. This is a channel that could bring out micromanaging instead of delegating. and it doesn't like to be micromanaged. So everyone in the world's being impacted. People are not going to like to be micromanaged. There's going to be a real sensitivity to that. Hey, don't try to control me. All right. Now, with that gate 21 in line 6, if you don't know how to manage your resources, there may be a tendency to withdraw and just find inner order. If the leader of your nation, your community, your workplace is not managing resources well, it's likely to create chaos here. And it can also create a tendency for others then in that situation to withdraw and try to find inner order. There's a real push-pull that I'm seeing in this channel with that hasty and impatient Mars in that throat center gate that can bring that impatience to materialize and manifest and express that impatience in an angry way. This is a manifesting channel. And then Saturn sitting in that ego gate and using that willpower to withdraw, to try to find inner order, right? That's a bit of a difficult combination there. Since this definition activates the ego and throat centers, the qualities of any other gates in these centers will be part of the definition. Now, we don't have any long-term transits activating other ego gates, but the Sun, Jupiter, and Uranus are all activating throat gates. We've already covered the Sun in the 31, the trait of leading and influence, and Jupiter's in that same trait, amplifying this logical orientation. While the Sun is going to click through all its lines in the cycle, Jupiter will be hitting 2 lines. So we'll take a look at those to see what its emphasis is going to bring here. It's going to start the cycle in line 4 called intent. That has a developmental theme that says the success of influence based on how it's perceived. That pretty much sums it up. You can have a leader that says the same thing to 2 different people, and one loves them and the other hates them. Right? The success of influence is based on how it's perceived. Remember, the collective is impersonal. So if you're guiding or leading people while this line's active, there are just going to be people that don't like your guidance, and you have to come to terms with that. On July 26th at 6:41 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, 12:41 p.m. UTC, Jupiter's going to move into line 5 called self-righteousness. Now, this is the line of universalization and also where we're projecting on each other. It too has a developmental theme that says lack of external influence guaranteed by attitude. The exaltation says a specialization that demands that one leads oneself. The detriment says a lack of ambition where one is content to lead oneself. Now, the 5th line again gets projected on, and it gets projected on here that it's just in it for themselves, right? That leader, they're just in it for themselves. They're just in it for the power. They're just in it for the money, whatever it might be. And when you look at our leaders, especially in the political arena, this is certainly what the universal projection tends to be. There's a bit of a cosmic joke here because this quality really brings out developing your own skills and leading yourself and being very comfortable in that. It's actually not worried about leading anyone else. Other people, though, can see that and are wondering, hey, well, what about us? Why aren't you leading us? So there's this projection of self-righteousness. It's really only in times of crisis that this leadership can come to the forefront and be effective in using those specialized skills to lead others in moving through the crisis. In the detriment, these are very reluctant leaders, but when they're supported and get into power, they can be very effective. But then again, there's going to be the projection that they're self-righteous. Timing's everything with the 5th line. You provide the leadership when it's aligned and supported, and then you get out. So Jupiter's expanding the pressure to lead and guide yourself, unless there's a crisis and you've got those specific skills that can support others, and that support is asked for and invited. And when the Sun moves into the same line on day 5 of this cycle, it's going to be even a stronger pressure. Uranus is sitting in gate 20, the trait of the now, our most existential gate in the body graph. It's going to start the cycle in line 5 called realism. This is the line that's going to have us projecting on each other that the other knows what's going on in the now. Well, maybe not. But with line 5, it's always important to manage expectations. It brings being able to see everything that's there in the world now, both the beauty and the ugliness. This is the realist. On July 26th at 12:53 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, 6:53 a.m. UTC, Uranus is going to move into line 6 called wisdom. Another developmental theme here that says contemplation, which results in the ability to apply understanding. The exaltation says the ability to transform individual awareness for general application and understanding. The detriment says the ability to transform individual awareness for general application for the mental challenge. More theoretical here. This sounds like a great line. But remember that the sixth line sees the whole individual circuitry in this case and isn't going to do anything unless it can see that they can explain it, that the people want to hear it, that they've got enough life experience to have a knowing that's enough of enough value to bring out. So there could be some wisdom here, but most often there's no expression. Looking at this definition altogether now, what you recognize in the now and the ability to manage resources may help you to lead and guide through your influence. Or you may have more influence using what you know in manifesting what you need. Or there can be an inability to manage resources that may result in chaos, leading to withdrawal in the now to find inner order and poor leadership. Our second definition is being created by the 4130 channel of recognition, a design of focused energy where the Earth and Pluto's position in gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease in the root center, is connecting with the position of the North Node in gate 30, the trait of recognition of feelings and of desire. Although the Earth is just here for the cycle, Pluto is a long-term transit. So we're going to have this channel for the full time that the 30 is in the North Node. That's from July 25th at 12:19 a.m. to November 23rd at 8:13 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC, July 25th from 8:19 a.m. until November 24th at 3:14 a.m. UTC. Pluto in gate 41, that contraction and decrease is sitting in line 3 called efficiency. It has a developmental theme that says in times of decreased selfishness is justified. The third line has its themes of trial and error and bonds made and broken. So efficiency is not automatic. It comes through trial and error. This process of figuring out on your own through the trial and error which experience to go through, which feeling you really want, and bringing that drive to do it alone. In the detriment, they'll be wanting to bring others into the experience and share it with them, which means more energy and resources are going to be used, and the other's going to have their influence. So the purity, per se, of doing it your own way is lost. It's just two different ways of going through the experience. Now, we've already talked about the Earth, and it will click through each line over the cycle. We've also talked about gate 30, the trait of desire, in the sixth line of enforcement. So we have a very strong channel with the third and sixth lines being in harmony with each other, combined with the added potency of the Earth's position. This channel of recognition brings the energy to take all the fantasies of gate 41 and contract them down to the one that's most desired, the one you're really yearning for. This does take time and patience, though, given the emotional nature of this channel. You can think of this as the I have a dream channel. We have one other gate in this definition, which is gate 53 in the root center being activated by Mercury. This is another unusually long transit by Mercury, which normally only activates a gate for about 3 or 4 days, give or take. This is the trait of beginnings, which is the other abstract experiential gate in the root center, bringing its pressure to start a new experience. So in this definition as a whole, it's very strong pressure for a new experience that's filled with desire for something amazing that's beyond expectations. Looking at the totality of our definitions now, what's the big picture here? Once Uranus moves into line 6, we have the dominance of 6 lines in the long-term transits with the nodes Uranus and Saturn, which is really interesting here because despite the pressures that we would think would have people taking action, we're more likely to see the action being withdrawing from chaos and materializing inner order, withdrawing to make peace with those that have negative feelings while hoping and longing for something more exciting and keeping one's wisdom in the now to oneself, because it probably wouldn't be accepted anyways. So not providing then any leadership or guidance to others unless absolutely pressed and it's a crisis situation. Otherwise, again, being withdrawn, being content to just lead oneself. We may hear a lot of sharing of dreams. though, and what one hopes to start. Dreams shared may influence others in the now and add to wisdom that helps them to find inner order while expressing needs and wants with impatience. For those that are unable to find inner order, spewing anger at the inability to materialize what they long for could negatively impact their ability to be seen as an effective leader. We also have three motors active, so lots of energy. And while the ego center has an outlet to the throat, the root and solar plexus don't. So if there's no access for those through your own design, there could be a lot of restlessness for you from this pent up energy and stress. It's a period where you're really going to want to use your stress management techniques and any emotional management tools if you don't have the root or emotional centers defined in your own design, respectively. We also have our long-term transits in undefined centers now. Now, whether these traits have a personal impact on you is going to depend on your own design. We've already talked about the south node in gate 29, so that just leaves gate 17 being activated by Neptune. Gate 17 is the gate of opinions in the Ajna center. It's correlated biologically to the right eye that takes in patterns in the now. This is going to bring the pressure to conceptualize your theories and opinions from the various patterns that you've taken in to determine what might be best to carry you and others into the future. It's still in line one called openness, and it brings the possibility to be open to many different opinions in many different areas, or like an art critic, only having opinions when it comes to a certain area of interest that you enjoy, but no opinion in any other area. Neptune's going to make it tougher to grasp the patterns and opinions, though, with its veiling effect. So it's likely to muddy the waters here and create difficulty in seeing the patterns clearly. Gate 17 also carries the anxiety of being challenged. So sometimes there can be this expressing of made up facts to try and convince others. Okay, just a quick review of the channels being created by the transits of the moon. Because they're only present for 10 to 11 hours, give or take, they don't have a big impact on the homogenized conditioning field we've talked about, but they could have a personal impact. Now, we just have one. It's going to come in on July 25th at 4:13 a.m., going until 3:33 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in July 26th at 10:13 a.m., going until 9:33 p.m. We have the 10 to the 20 individual channel of awakening, connecting the G center to the throat. This is a design of commitment to higher principles where your self-love or self-hate and the appropriate behavior of gate 10 or not for the circumstances, right? This is appropriate behavior in the now for the circumstances have the potential to be expressed here. All right, that's the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. Lots going on here. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you just want to understand more of the basics of the chart, what's the red and the black about, the different geometric shapes and so on, feel free to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human-design. All right, well, have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.